Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. So it's pretty common to assume that accountants have a reputation to be not people and to be a little bit, I'll say, arrogant, dismissive, not good communicators. And I'm not describing every single accountant, but we have kind of a reputation, I'm not going to lie. And whenever I find someone who defies that reputation, whenever I find someone who really is building a community and is building something around education and empowerment for business owners and individuals, I just light up. I love talking to other accountants who think like that. And I love meeting other professionals who share those same values. And this person is no exception. So I'm really, really excited to welcome Grant Dougherty onto the show today. Grant is a founder and CEO of Dougherty Tax Solutions, and he's always understood the value of teamwork. He grew up playing team sports, noticed the power of what a team could accomplish together, and this sense of teamwork stayed with him as he went on to play baseball, and he studied business and eventually decided to go get his MBA. Now, he's just an amazing person to talk to. He's so understanding, so calm, so nurturing. I know you're going to love this interview with him. We're going to be discussing things from different tax strategies to how to build your business financial foundation. You're going to hear a lot of the same things I talk about on this show, to be honest, but you're going to hear it from his perspective, his voice. And if you're looking for a tax professional who just gets it and will actually talk to you, Grant has a heart of gold and the heart of a teacher. And I'm so excited to welcome him onto the show. And I'm so excited for you to meet him. So let's dive into the interview. Hey, Grant, welcome to the show.
Hey, Shannon, thank you for having me on.
Of course. Can you just introduce yourself to everyone? Say what you are. Say what you are, who you are, and what you do.
Yeah, no, definitely. So my name is Grant Dougherty, born and raised here in Houston, Texas. I went to school to study finance and accounting. I also am an enrolled agent. So what I do is I'm a tax advisor. I work with individuals, small business owners, real estate investors on their taxes year round. And I've been in business now for about 5 years. And so, I've been in the industry now for about 5 years. I've had my own separate business for about 3 years now.
Awesome. How did you get into accounting and tax? Because I always like to ask people that, when you're a little kid, you're not going, I really want to be a tax accountant when I grow up. So tell us about how you kind of became specialized in this area.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a funny story, right? So I actually went to school to play baseball. Like that's initially how I got started. I played sports in college. I was a baseball player in college. And whenever they told me that I had to find a major, I just started researching what were some good majors to make good money when I graduated. And I ran across finance and accounting and I just stuck with it, right? So I went into school, just studied finance and accounting. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I was just plugging in the numbers, just trying to pass my test, get a good grade. And then when I finally got into the real world, it all finally started to tie in, and that's when the light bulb clicked. And so yeah, that's essentially how I got into like the finance, accounting, tax space.
Very cool. And who do you specialize in working with, or what are some of your areas of specialty?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of small business owners and real estate investors. Most of my clients make less than $1 million a year. So like that's going to be my typical, the typical person who I work with is, individuals, small business owners, real estate investors that generally make less than $1 million. I do work with some people that make over $1 million, but it's just a handful of people. Most of the people are under that $1 million threshold.
Gotcha. And, are you helping them cross 1 million, or are you helping them kind of maximize their tax savings, or like what's the goal, right, for your clients?
Yeah, so of course, maximizing tax savings is always a big one, but really I'm all about education. If I can teach you kind of the way how things work and what is important to grow a business, that's really what my main goal is. Now, there's so many aspects to running a business, right? You're gonna have to take it upon yourself to really understand and master your own industry. But from a tax perspective, I'm all about laying that strong foundation. And then once when we have that strong foundation, we can kind of build our nice house after that. And we can kind of go into, oh, okay, you want to do this tax strategy. Here is the exact way how you should be doing that.
So, what are some examples of key foundational elements that you look for? When you're working with someone, what are some of the things you're looking for to see, do they have a strong foundation or not?
Oh, bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is going to probably be number one with any small business owner, any type of real estate investor. Heck, even like your own personal finances. You should understand what is coming into your own personal account, what is going out, and that's essentially, that's going to be bookkeeping 101 wrapped up. Is you're going to know your numbers, you're going to know your profit, and once when you get that solid foundation, that's when we start looking at, okay, can we do an S corporation? Does it make sense to invest in real estate? What are the different things that we can do to really maximize our tax savings?
So, would you recommend, I guess, waiting to take on certain strategies or waiting to invest in real estate until some of that stuff is ironed out?
Yeah, I'm always big on make sure you get the foundations set first before you really try to go and do anything too complex. Because what I have run across a lot of times is people immediately jump to, let's just say, an S corporation, but there's so many other aspects that they kind of looked over. And now that they're in this S corporation, there's all these different administrative tasks and different nuances that they have to complete. That it's a complete shock whenever I tell them, oh, hey, by the way, are you on salary? Do you actually have an officer compensation? And they're just looking at me like, what is that? So that's a big
Mhm.
no-no whenever you go to something like an S corp.
I love that. So the group that you serve, right? Sub $1 million. Typically, this is always like the conundrum with us, is typically they can't afford the super crazy expensive creative, air quotes creative tax professionals to do some of these fancy strategies. But they're also in a position where they can implement strategies, but they're under the market of a lot of the higher tier like CPAs, strategists, things like that, and they don't want to work with them. So I feel like there's this underserved gap, right, of people who need the help to lay that foundation, but nobody who will give them the time of day to actually help them execute it. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do feel, it depends, right? It all depends on the tax advisor or tax preparer that you choose to work with. If you go to a bigger firm, they have a lot more overhead costs. They have a lot more people that they actually have on payroll. So, yeah, you could probably expect them to charge you a little bit more if you go to them. Whereas if you go to someone a little bit smaller, and again, it depends because maybe one individual has a bunch of different clients and they can't actually take on anyone new unless they're willing to pay them that premium. So it really all depends. But yeah, generally I do run across that a lot. Is a lot of well established and well seasoned tax advisors really do charge probably a little bit more than what the average business owner is looking to pay.
Yeah, and then, when they implement it, right, a lot of business owners are then not forced, I should say, but then they find themselves trying to DIY this. Like you said, like, oh, well, I
Right.
heard an S corp was a great idea because I saw this video on TikTok, and now I did it myself, or I sent in the 2553 form because I heard about it on a podcast. Like you guys could easily grab one of my episodes and go try to do it yourself, but like, be warned.
I always like to reckon it to someone changing the oil in their car, right? You can
Yeah.
look it up on YouTube, and you could probably go figure out how to relatively change your oil in your vehicle. But the moment something goes wrong, that's when it's probably better to have a professional there who really has seen this problem a million times before, and they know exactly what to do to fix it. Whereas you would now have to go back onto YouTube, try to type in what happens if this actual flaw happens while I'm changing my oil, and you may or may not find it. So that's how
Mhm.
I always like to reckon it. It's you can go to YouTube and figure it out, but there's a difference between doing some research and going to try to implement whatever you saw versus someone who does this every single day and they know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and they've seen the mistakes made on it and
Yeah.
know exactly where you could get tripped up or what could happen to you. I think that's huge. I think it's more so people see the value in professionals like us that we take the work away or that we'll get it done for them and get it done better than them because we're trained. But beyond that, it's the time savings. It's the stress of not having to worry how to learn this on your own or just knowing that we're going to be there if it does get effed up or if there is something that goes sideways that's out of our control, right? That we'll be able to help support it, so that they don't have to all figure it all on their own.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. I think you hit it. Hit the hammer on the nail there. That was perfectly stated.
So when we talk about, like, let's say, I know you work with business owners and real estate investors, right? What are
Yes.
some of the common, we'll say, challenges or hurdles they're working with right now? And, what are you advising people? What's kind of coming up for your clients right now?
Oh, it's there's so many different things that I've seen. The biggest challenge whenever I take on someone new is really going to be that strong foundation. Get a bookkeeper. If you don't have a bookkeeper, I'll probably recommend that you go and I always tell people, hey, go get QuickBooks certified if you want to do your own bookkeeping. A lot of people aren't really trying to do that because it does take a lot of time. But you have to get some type of training to essentially get that strong foundation if you're going to DIY. If not, you got to outsource it and I strongly recommend outsourcing bookkeeping because that really is a very time consuming
Hmm.
job that you have to take care of. I don't even do my own bookkeeping. I outsource that to someone else because it just takes too much time. And so that's the biggest thing in my opinion is make sure you have that strong foundation. And I just run across so many people that don't have that strong foundation. It's kind of like putting in a really fancy pool in your home, but the foundation's all messed up. Like it doesn't make any sense to do something like that.
Right, the pool's gonna leak, the stuff's gonna crack, you're not gonna be able to
Yeah.
enjoy it because it's a matter of time, not it may not be evident from the surface yet, but give it enough time and the pool will become unusable and you'll have to dig it all out and start over.
Oh yeah, that would be a pain.
Exactly. I've been through that actually. So it's a great analogy. So when it comes to, I know we talk about building a financial foundation, right? All the time on this show. And we talk about bookkeeping. And I've told you guys this on the show, but I think it helps to have somebody else reiterate it too. But let's talk about the cost of the right help because I think people go, well, I can't afford to hire a bookkeeper yet. I wanna dispel that myth right now and say, like, it's not that expensive. It doesn't have to be that expensive. Can you kind of share what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't look at it as a cost. I'd look at it as more of an investment
Mhm.
because you really are going to receive some type of ROI on that investment. And whether the ROI be monetary or whether it be freedom of time or maybe your mind is at peace because everything is being done correctly. That's how I generally like to look at something like bookkeeping is it's not a cost. It really is an investment. And, if you are worried about how much that investment may cost you, shop around. Like there's so many different options out there. A bookkeeper in somewhere like California may charge a little bit more because they have a higher cost of living out there versus a bookkeeper in maybe Nebraska may charge a little bit less because there's lower cost of living. So just shop around, make sure that you find someone that fits well with your business, and also if you are price sensitive, just check out the different prices and maybe talk with them. Like, hey, if instead of maybe charging me on a monthly, can we look at if I sign a contract for a 2-year deal, can I get some type of discount on the monthly premium or something like that?
Right. And if it's not a huge priority for you, then and you can shop around. I always say if you want to make it a priority, pay for the person that you can have a long-term relationship with, just knowing they're going to come at a cost and it's going to be an investment time frame on the front end, but like they're going to pay themselves back, you know, in the time
Simple.
saved for you as you're building and you'll be able to quote unquote afford them for the long term and have that relationship long term. But if you're in that position where you're wondering, like, okay, is there another way? I always say, I heard this on a podcast recently about taking advice from the person. So, like, if you have a mentor, right, in your business that
Mhm.
says, oh, go hire a tax strategist, go hire this person, go do this for your business. What they're doing is probably coming from the place of where they're at now and telling you advice on what they think you should do now, assuming you're where they are. Like they're talking to themselves and saying, this is what I would do right now if I were you. And it's like, but you're not. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind you. What would your 5-year old, like 5 years ago self, tell me to do? And I think that most of the time people try to skip ahead. They try to hire the tax strategist, the CFO, whatever, without the bookkeeper and without having the history of the bookkeeping. And I think we're just skipping steps there, right?
Yeah. No, no, definitely. Yeah, and they're probably just speaking from experience as well, right? It's just one of those things. I always tell people take any type of advice you hear with a grain of salt, and always go back and find your specific advisor, bookkeeper, and take the information you have and take it back to them and see how it works. Now, yes, whenever it comes to building that foundation, I would say a bookkeeper is probably going to be step number one, because that bookkeeper probably does know a tax advisor that they can probably refer you to, but you have to get those books. I mean, a tax advisor can't really tell you a whole lot if they don't know what your numbers are, and the bookkeeper is going to be the one that gets you your numbers.
Yeah, they're the ones who are compiling the data that everybody else in your ecosystem relies on.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Let's shift gears for a second, talk about the real estate investing side because I know people are very interested in that. I feel like this is kind of a hot topic now for a lot of business owners. They're making money, they're making profit, and now they're like, okay, where do I invest this money? Right?
Yeah.
How do I actually invest this money for long-term wealth building? And I want to kind of touch on what I think are the 2 main benefits of real estate, and Grant, you tell me if you agree or what other thoughts you have, but I think there's the, like, wealth building, appreciation, the asset that is real estate, but then there's also the cash flow that is real estate,
Oh, yeah.
and along with all of that is tax savings too. What do you think are the compelling reasons people should invest in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of different, tax incentives and financial incentives for investing in real estate. Now, I will go ahead and put out this disclosure that I'm not a financial advisor,
Right.
and you should always, always consult with a financial advisor before making a large investment in either real estate, your solo 401k, a stock, whatever it may be, because that financial advisor should be looking out in your best interest, and they should be able to help you like, okay, I don't think you're ready to make this jump into real estate just yet. And in fact, I would say a lot of small business owners who are just getting started, I would actually recommend that they open up a solo 401k, a Roth IRA, or something like that, and just get that strong foundation set first before making a big jump to something like real estate, because real estate is costly. Things break and you do need the cash in order to replace it. But once when you make that jump over into real estate, there are a lot of tax incentives. One of the biggest ones is going to be depreciation. That's a great way to depreciation is going to be more like a phantom expense. Although I don't really like to say phantom expense because it is built into your purchase price of the property generally. And this is very general, not exact for everyone's situation. Usually, whenever if you have a mortgage, the amount of mortgage premiums that you pay throughout the year is going to usually add up to about what your depreciation cost is, give or take, right? Especially if you're on a 30-year mortgage and you have a 27.5-year depreciable property, it's going to be relatively pretty close to that. And so depreciation is a big one. Like you said, the appreciation of the asset is also really great. And then also cash flow. Cash flow is a big one because that's just extra money coming into your pockets every day. And then it's also rental income is taxed more favorably than something like W-2 or business income because it doesn't have that extra leg of Social Security and Medicare tax added on top of it.
So expand more on that. So the advantages of rental income over really wage income. Why should people be pursuing making more money from rental than from a W-2 job, let's say?
Yeah, so the biggest one is that Social Security and Medicare tax. That
Mhm.
is a combined 15.3% of the total earnings that you make. Now, if you are employed at an employer, your employer will pay half of that. But if you're self employed, you foot the entire 15.3%. Whereas rental income is actually considered passive by nature. And so the income is not subject to those Social Security and Medicare taxes. Think of Social Security and Medicare as like a working man or working woman's tax, right? Whereas passive income, you're not technically working for it. Although that argument could be made that there is a lot of work involved in real estate, so I totally get that. But the income itself is not subject to that Social Security and Medicare tax. Big, big, big advantage, and not to mention you can use other expenses like depreciation is a big one to help offset some of that income that you are receiving. Losses from other properties, there's things like cost seg analysis that you can do, a little bit more of an advanced strategy, but you can do something like a cost segregation analysis and offset any of that rental income that you may be receiving for that year.
And by offset, right, we're talking about like on paper showing that it will offset, not necessarily like cash out the door payments where you're not making any money.
Right. No, no. Whenever I say offset, it's think of you made $10,000 of rental income, but you have $20,000 of depreciation expense. Basically, that $10,000 now gets offset. You have like a $10,000 loss. Thankfully, the IRS does allow you to take that $10,000 loss and carry it over to the next year to offset any rental income that you may have for the following year. Now, there are ways how you can treat that loss as what they call a non-passive loss, and they can offset W-2 income. But again, that's a little bit more of an advanced strategy and not something that I would recommend that you look into unless you have your strong foundation set.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I feel like you kind of it's almost a video game, Grant, like like, you get bigger weapons when you beat the bigger villains, and you have to be like, start at level 1, right?
Right. That's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, I like I just go Donkey Kong. I go, "You're on level 1. You gotta get here and beat the boss, then we'll go to level 2, and we'll deal with this. Like, you ain't going up there yet. You're gonna get crushed by the level 10 villain because you don't have the weapons and the equipment and the skills in the video game to go
Right.
after that." And
Right.
most people understand that.
I mean, heck, I've run across people who wouldn't even understand that they think that they really do have the skills and the foundations. And, you can't get through to everyone. You need to just do your very best to let them know, like, okay, what if this happens? You try to hit them
Mhm.
with reason. Like, from my experience, what are all the possible cons that could possibly happen from this? And you just start to toss them out there, give them ideas. And usually
Yeah.
that's whenever they start to self reason, like, okay, well, he does have a point. Maybe I don't want to go this fast.
And do you recommend now I know I kinda know the answer to this, but I wanna just hear your take on it. Is, do you recommend that people like, where in their journey should people start exploring these other avenues like real estate investing and other things? I feel like, you know, there's a lot of diluted focus, we'll say, and people want to take advantage of all these different strategies. What guidance would you give someone who's listening who's thinking, I really want to get into real estate. I want to get into all these things, but like, where do I start and where do I find the money to do this? Maybe they're not making, X number of dollars, which I would love to hear kind of the level that people typically start engaging in these types of things and getting creative with strategies or different income streams, right? But, what are you seeing and what advice do you have to someone who's maybe just getting started and wants to take advantage of this stuff, but, besides building a financial foundation, of course, let's just say that they're working on that,
So, I mean, it really all depends. It depends on the person.
right?
That's going to be a large thing. And also, I'm going to always revert back to, consult with the financial advisor because they
Yep.
will have your best interest in mind and they should be able to break out the numbers for you so you can actually see which investment may potentially give me a better ROI. Now, whenever you get involved into real estate, I always generally recommend that you not only have enough money to make a down payment on your first rental property, but you also have additional capital saved up for any type of maintenance problems. Or if you have renovations, that's a whole nother issue that you have to tackle, right? That requires a lot of capital. Now, there are ways how you can leverage the banking system to get, certain HELOCs or different things like that. You can use leverage to create more capital for you, but that's also a very risky play because we saw back in 2008 how disastrous that was to be over leveraged. But that's why I always revert back to that financial advisor because your financial advisor, they get a lot of heat on like social media, like, oh, they charge 1% fees and this and that, but that 1% fee really could save you from making a really bad mistake in the future.
And I think the way to maximize the value you get from any professional, be it a financial advisor or someone like Grant or myself, is knowing what your goals are and
Yeah.
being super clear about this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that people start with the strategy, but not the goal. They're like, I want to do that. And we go, why? Right. And you have to really be clear on what is your goal? What do you define as successful implementation of this so that we can help you get there? But if you're doing it just to do it, then I feel like you're almost setting yourself up for failure.
Right. I run across a lot of people that they want to try everything. I want to
Yeah.
invest in this stock. I want to invest in real estate. I want to have a self-directed IRA. I want to do this. And they end up spreading themselves out too thin. And you never want to, you want to diversify, but you don't want to be so spread out that you can't just access your money whenever you need to. Because I don't know, in my experience, I have seen several situations that have just been completely disastrous. And yeah, it seems cool to have all these different investments, but whenever it really counts, let's just say you lose your job or something, you're going to want that cash savings ready to go to deploy to basically get yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, it really depends on everyone's situation in terms of where their money is allocated to. And I think that for me, success for my clients and success for you listening is knowing where your money is,
Yeah,
knowing where it is and giving it that intention, right? Of saying, okay, I'm investing this much in real estate, this much in the market, this much in my retirement, and knowing where the money is and how much you want in each, just to make sure you're comfortable with that. Because
right.
it varies by person.
Yeah, no, every person is different, and every person has a slightly different situation. There may be situations that are very similar, but every person's situation is still different.
Yeah, and I have to add for those of you listening, you need to be following Grant on social media. Have him give his handle, but he's got so many good tips on there. I love reading your content because it's very approachable, very piecemeal. Usually it's in the form of like several slides of one bite at a time, which I really like. But also, he shares these really creative tips that he learns from clients. And you shared one with me at the beginning of the show, right before we hit record. We were talking about like creative tips for tax strategies,
Oh yeah.
and I love stuff like this. So can you just share what you told me before we hit record?
Yeah. So, and again, consult with a financial advisor. This is
Yeah,
just something that I've heard, and different strategies out there. But if you are looking to invest in real estate, there are strategies out there where people will look at companies like Starbucks, and they'll look at companies like Costco, and they'll look to see where these companies are opening up new locations. And the reason why they'll do that is because they'll look to invest around these areas, because companies like Starbucks and Costco do so much research on that specific area, and they have already put in so much research that they know that this is going to be a relatively good area. It's going to have a lot of traffic. It's going to have a lot of, I guess, successful professionals, I guess it would be like the word to use. But generally, people will try to find rentals near a Starbucks or a Costco, because that's supposed to signify a well developed or developing area. Again, I'm
yeah,
not a financial advisor. There's probably a lot of flaws involved with that
of
strategy.
course.
So,
Yeah.
I'm not going to just say that that's a go to strategy, but it is something that I have run across quite a few times.
What it tells me though, and what I was thinking of when you shared that was like some of the simplest things you can think about based on human nature, based on just human behavior. If you go back down to that, you'll understand like that's where the money goes. That totally makes sense. Like whenever you're strategizing, you don't have to think too like too I say complexly. It doesn't have to be that complex. You can really just think about, oh, that makes total sense actually. What's funny is when Grant said this, he said, there's this kind of this thing going around that where there's a Starbucks or a Costco, it's a great place to invest in real estate. And where my brain went was, well, yeah, you can replenish all the linens and the goods and the stuff for the rental properties, and then they can get coffee because people want to be near a Starbucks. The first thing I Google when I land in a hotel is where's the nearest Starbucks. And when you went with that answer, I was like, that makes total sense. And I'm just thinking from the experience of the business person running it, not from the investor. And that is a really unique thing to be aware of is I was not thinking like an investor. I was thinking like an operator.
Yeah. Another quick strategy, and again, take it this with a grain of salt. But I
Yeah,
have one person that I work with. He invests in a lot of short term rentals, and whenever people think of short term rentals, they think of vacations. And who doesn't think of vacations? Very luxurious beach home or something like that. However, this one person who I work with, he invests in small homes around military bases, and he finds the military bases that have these graduations coming in every few weeks. And he doesn't really need to make it a super nice house. He just needs a place for
makes
these military
sense.
families to come in, watch Johnny graduate, and then they get out of there, right? So that's a great way to get involved in the short term rental game without coming out of a lot of capital to make a really nice short term rental.
Yeah, I think that people get caught up in the image of it or they make it more complicated than it has to be. When you really look at it as is this is supposed to like run cash flow, you got to think what are the opportunities to
Right.
basically not have to market it and be in a location. I mean, everything's about location, but be in a location that's so in demand. And when you think about in demand locations, like you said, do not jump to the vacation destinations, which are, inconsistent or reliant on the economy and the performance, right? Like that can ebb and flow. But like you said, military graduation, that's happening.
Yeah.
Like that's going to happen regardless, and people will need places to stay. You have to go where the necessity is.
Yeah. No, whenever I first ran across him, and I've been working with him for a few years now, it blew my mind because that was the first time I actually ran across someone who had legit effective short-term rentals, was cash flowing really, really well. But it wasn't, and none of these were just like super nice vacation homes. They were all just like random single-family homes out there near a military base. And yeah, killing it, absolutely
Yeah.
killing it.
And it's so refreshing to go back to basics
Yeah.
and go like what just makes the most sense here. Like let's be real. Grant, I love chatting with you cuz it's easy to talk to other professionals who kind of get it and know how to talk to folks at their like meet them where they're at and talk about the simple basic concepts. Can you tell everyone listening where they can find out more about you, where they can follow you on social?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Instagram. My tag is Dougherty Tax Solutions. So you can just type in my last name, Dougherty, and then Tax Solutions. You can find me on Instagram. I try to post daily, but I'm not always the most consistent because especially with like tax season and like all the different work I have. So I try to be consistent though.
Yeah, and even when he isn't, it's still really good content, so make sure you're following along. You have some of the most savable posts that I see on the platform, so check him
Thank you.
out if you're not already following him, and, is that where they can get in touch with you as well if they're interested in learning more about working with you, Grant?
Yeah, you can just shoot me a DM. I'm pretty good at least answering them. Now I may not get to your DM like the day that you send it. It may be like a few days, but yeah, you can just shoot me a DM and I will eventually get around to it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Grant, for hopping on the show.
No, thank you for having me, Shannon.
Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could chat with me and our guests about this episode? Well, guess what? You can. Join the Keep What You Earn community now using the link below in the show notes. You can post your questions, chat with fellow business owners, and the best part, it's totally free. Oh, and by the way, it's not a Facebook group. That's right, no noisy notifications or distractions. Just what you need to get the full experience from listening to this podcast and maximizing your value. Meet us over there after the episode to get exclusive content and access to me and our guests for your questions. We'll see you over there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.